Hi, this is Dr. Smart. The purpose of this video is to help you know what I want you to do for the final video presentations that you'll be doing for this course. I want to tell you a little more about why I'm having you do this and then model one for you so that you'll see what I'm expecting you to post. So as researchers, one of the most important skills is being able to communicate your research to other people. Without that skill, what we do just stays in our own brains, our own minds, and we don't ever get to actually share that. So what I'm wanting to do for you is to simulate a roundtable discussion that you may attend at a conference. Usually when you go to a research conference, you have three types of presentations. One would be a paper presentation where you stand up in front of an audience and present your paper. The second would be a poster presentation where you stand with a poster that you create and present that to people as they come by to talk to you. And the third type is a roundtable discussion where you sit at a table, which is what I'm doing right now, and describe your paper to other authors that are sitting at the same table. Usually these papers are grouped by topic. So if I were, the paper I'm going to model for you in a minute is on inquiry-based instruction. So to present this paper, I was at a table with other science educators. People can attend that session and come sit at the table with you. And at the end of the session, the authors ask each other questions. It's just a great conversation. We will not be able to simulate the question and answer part, but I'm asking you to pretend that you're taking your paper to present at a round table, that you're sitting at a table with a group of researchers and you're just simply going to tell them about your study. The reason I like to simulate this over a paper presentation, the paper presentation is very formal. You're standing in front of usually a lectern. You have your PowerPoint presentation, and it is a little more high stress, if you will. A roundtable is more laid back. You're just simply talking about your research, and that's my goal for you. I want you to be able to talk about your research. You'll notice as I do this, as I model what a roundtable discussion would look like, you'll see me looking to my right. My computer is sitting right here, and I have notes. You'll have to apologize. I have something in my eye today. I have my computer right here with notes, which are going to help me tell you about my study. And I want you to do the same. You can have notes that you're looking down at. Don't read them, but have some key things that are going to help you tell us about your study. You don't have to memorize these points. Just simply have some notes that you can look at occasionally to help you discuss your study with us. Okay. On the little narrative part of this assignment, I've listed what you need to do. There's some specific, sorry guys, this is getting serious with my eye here. There are some pretty specific steps that I want you to take. Number one is to state the title. Number two is name and where you're from, purpose of the study, and it goes on. You'll have a list of those. And I'm not going to specifically tell you which part of the study I'm on. I'm just going to go through those. And I hope that as you hear me talk about this study, that will help you know what I want you to do for yours. Okay? Keep in mind that this was also a study that was done through a National Science Foundation grant by 3 researchers over the span of about 2 years. So yours is going to be not in the realm of what we did. Okay, this is just giving you an idea. Okay, so I'm going to put my take my teacher hat off and put my researcher hat on, and I'm going to simulate what you will be doing for your video. Okay, today I want to tell you about my study. The title of my study is Inquiry-Based Instruction, a Possible Solution to Improving Student Learning. My name is Julie Smart. I'm from Clemson University, and I worked with 2 other researchers on this paper, Dr. Jeff Marshall and Dr. Danny Alston. First, I want to talk to you just about the purpose of the study. We really wanted to explore the effects that teacher involvement in a professional development had on student academic growth. We wanted to see if the teachers involved in a specific professional development would help their students then to grow at a rate that was higher than the expected growth for that particular age group. A little bit about why we conducted the study. The context is situated within a 6-year National Science Foundation grant in which we worked with over 200 teachers and over 15,000 students to study the effects of inquiry-based instruction. So this is a small little subsection of a much larger study. To begin, I want to tell you a little bit about some of the research that we built our study on, some of the previous research that we looked at as we planned for this study. First, we have the next generation science standards that we know are raising the bar for our students. Students are going to be expected to demonstrate proficiencies in many areas, the scientific and engineering practices. There is literature, though, to support the fact that inquiry-based instruction has a positive correlation to many positive student outcomes. There are studies that have shown inquiry-based instruction to have a positive effect on student motivation, student achievement, and also student efficacy, the way that they feel about their ability to do the science. However, the research that we've looked at leading up to this study does show that there's many barriers to implementing effective inquiry in the classroom. Some of those may be low teacher efficacy, some of those may be insufficient training, and some of those may be professional development that is not effective in lasting change. So that really leads us into a discussion of some of the research on professional development that we used as we were developing this study. We know that PD interventions that are one shot, one day, 2 or 3 hours, rarely affect lasting change. Some of the research that we built our professional development on shows that PD really needs to have an institutional context in which teachers are built into community groups where they will receive ongoing support from a team of researchers or teacher educators that will come into their school and actually team teach with them, plan with them, be invested in the process. We also know from the research that we've read on PD is that many teachers report very negative feedback about PD. There's some negative attitudes that we're already battling as we build these programs. We also know that sustained support from the PD facilitators is a big correlation to success in these initiatives. So now that I've told you a little bit about the background research that we built this on, I'd like to tell you the research question that we used to guide the study. The research question that guided our study is, what effect does a sustained PD professional development have on student academic growth in science content knowledge and practices? So our research question is looking not just at scientific practices, but also their content knowledge. I'd like to talk a little bit about the methods that we used for this study. This was a 6-year quasi-experimental design. Our participants were over 200 teachers, 15,000 students, and they came from a rural area of North and South Carolina. There are tables at the end of our study that can tell you more about the demographics. But we did have a wide range of socioeconomic status represented in the student population, as well as rural, urban, and suburban. We are looking at 4 groups of teachers. We actually are looking at one of our groups was the year 1 participants in our PD. We had year 2 participants, year 3, and then we also had teachers that we included in our analysis that were non-participating teachers that had never participated in this PD. Our main measure for student academic growth is called the MAP assessment, Measures of Academic Progress. It's put out of the Northwest Educational Association and tends to look at a dynamically adjusting system of assessment that really adjusts to the learner responses. If a student answers a question correctly, the next question will get a little harder. If they answer it incorrectly, the next question gets a little bit more feasible for the student to answer. So we try to actually look at estimating the place the student is comfortable answering questions. MAP is aligned to our state standards, so it is a good measure of science content knowledge and practices. We took assessments in the fall and the spring to look at student growth. We also use something called a virtual comparison group. It is a virtual group that is put together by the creators of the MAP assessment to show what students should be doing, an average student at that grade level. So we actually took the advice of some Northwest Evaluation Association colleagues and they use an algorithm to create a group that is very similar to our group, the population we were working with, in race, gender, START score in the fall, and poverty index. So we actually established an expected growth benchmark. What would we expect students to grow from fall to spring? And then we compared the students of our teachers to that expected growth. We did use one-way analysis of variance in order to examine our data. We ran post hoc tests and, of course, calculated descriptive statistics, all of which are available in the tables for this study. I want to highlight a couple of key results. We found that students of teachers who were involved in our PD had students that had significantly higher than expected growth in both science content and science processes. So in other words, we had the virtual comparison group that showed what students should grow, what was expected of them in that year, and students of the teachers that had participated in our PD actually exceeded that expected growth. We also found that effect sizes for these three significant findings ranged from 0.72 to 1.13, which is considered medium to high effect sizes. Students of teachers involved in the PD that we had worked with exceeded expected growth in science processes and content by well over 50%. The results also held true across all of the groups that we measured, females, males, Caucasian, African American, Hispanic, and across all IEP and 504 plans. So now that we've talked a little about the actual statistical results, we'd like to discuss our data. We see from our data that students of PD participants at all levels, whether they were year 1, year 2, or year 3, demonstrated improved growth on scientific practices. Students of participants in all levels also demonstrated improved growth on the science concepts. So we really see that the results are showing that the potential for PD and inquiry-based instruction to affect students positively in not just their science content, but also their practices. It supports the benefits of inquiry-based instruction for all learners across the achievement gap. Okay, for some reason my notes stopped working, so I'm just going to ad-lib. When we looked at implications, we basically come to the point of discussing that teachers could benefit from a professional development model that is not a one-shot model. In other words, the results of our study really show that we need to start working as educators to provide teachers with professional development that is sustained, that isn't just a one-shot workshop or a 2 or 3 hour presentation, but a professional development that is similar to the one that we used with these teachers that demonstrated student growth. That our main implication is that teachers need to be engaged in these sustained professional developments. Another implication of this study is the power of inquiry-based instruction to affect student growth in science content and process. Prior to this study, there was very little evidence that inquiry-based instruction could affect science content knowledge positively. You usually see the results come out in the science processes. However, our study has implications that inquiry-based instruction is also powerful to affect student content knowledge in science. So those are our two main implications. There were some limitations to the study. We had several instances of students being sick, students out of the classroom, didn't get their MAP assessments taken during the testing window, so those certainly affected our results. We also had an instructor that became ill during professional development, and we had to have a substitute professional development instructor come in, and that always affects the way the PD goes. This instructor was only out briefly, but that's still a limitation that we had to adjust the PD experience based on that. And this concludes my summary of the research that we conducted. I hope this was a helpful model for you as you're putting together your video. Please